freedom's gone, your courage lost. You're no more than a slave. In this, the land of the free, and home of the brave. You buy permits to travel and permits to own a gun, permits to start a business or to build a place for one. On land that you believe you own, you pay a yearly rent, although you have no voice in saying how the money's spent. Your children must attend a school that doesn't educate, and your Christian values can't be taught according to the state. You read about the current news in a regulated press, and you pay a tax you do not owe to please the IRS. Your money is no longer made of silver nor of gold. You trade your wealth for paper so your life can be controlled. You pay for crimes that make our nation turn from God and shame. You've taken Satan's number and traded in your name. You've given government control to those who do you harm so they could burn down churches and seize the family farm and keep our country deep in debt. Put men of God in jail. Harass your fellow countrymen while corrupted courts prevail. Your public servants don't uphold the solemn oaths they've sworn. Your daughters visit doctors till their children will be born. Your leaders send artillery and guns to foreign shores and send your sons to slaughter fighting other people's wars. Can you regain the freedoms for which we fought and died? But don't you have the courage or the faith to stand with pride? And are there no more values for which you'll fight to save? Or do you wish your children live in fear, be a slave? O sons of the Republic, arise, take a stand, defend the Constitution, the supreme law of the land. Preserve our great republic and each God-given right. And pray to God, keep the torch of freedom burning bright. As I awoke, he vanished in the mist from whence he came. His words were true. We are not free, but we have ourselves to blame. For even now, as tyrants trample each God-given right, we only watch and tremble, too afraid to stand and fight. If he stood by your bedside to dream while you were asleep and wondered what remains of the freedoms he'd fought to keep, what would be your answer if he called out from the grave? Is this still the land of the free? Free. God bless you. God bless you.
And good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is the first hour of the afternoon intelligence report. I'm Mark Kernke. One day closer to victory for all of our brothers and sisters, both on and behind the lines in occupied territories, Southwest, East, Northeast, and Central. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to us on LibertyTreeRadio.4MG.com, IndianaFreedomTalkRadio.com in memoriam, and we are on AM and FM micro stations, CB base stations. Good afternoon, channel 19, 21, and 25. We have a bunch of new boys on the block that are testing the President radios, which are really the best for rebroadcasting like this that we've used for decades now. Problem is finding more, but we've got a few in the box brand new. Anyway, for you guys out there listening to CB, thank you. We appreciate the work you're doing to double up and expand because you need to do it now. Somebody kicks off a rifle round and an exchange begins. It's not going to slow down. The bad guys are all going to get pumped up. The bat faggots, the FBI, everybody will be telling you how you're all guilty by just owning a gun, and they want to confiscate everything and be like, well, why don't you just eat feces and die? That's what we'll be telling them, and somebody's just going to say enough, and it's going to start to exchange, and it'll be done. That'll be the kickoff. So you need communications in place. Get it done fast. I've got a pile of antennas in the other room I'm going through right now. You should be doing the same. Anyway, Also, UltraNet, Hallmark, and Golden Spike Technologies east and west of the Mississippi, along with Alaska. I'm going to answer a question on that real quick. For some of the guys, yes, any of the older Windows software works just fine because we don't have the spyware problems. But what I would recommend, like for instance, Vista, not many people really loved Vista, but Vista works really well on the UltraNet system. And so there was a question about that I hadn't answered yesterday when we were actually up on the air. Vista, the old Vista software, works really well because it had an onboard, or what was it? It was an add-on spyware package that Microsoft did for the government and for the turds out of Israel. Well, if you had Vista isolated, for some reason they never did an upgrade/update like they do now, where they're just constantly loading new spyware in for the Jewish mob and for the turds overseas. So the Vista software is very, very clean in its first generation form, and you leave it that way. Since Ultranet, Hallmark, and Golden Spike aren't hooked up to the regular internet in any way, shape, or form, there is no flag tag or benchmark to do anything different with it. Of course, it's kind of like I'm driving a Model A. If I were to show up in the other arena, I'm driving a Model A that they won't let play on the highway anyway, which is cool because that means they can't do anything to you. In this case, that's not a problem. So Vista is working, very well. If you have a pile of the older computers, a lot of people do, where they've had them isolated and they were using them and they had maybe a pile of them in an office closet, which I think was really the question. Those are perfect for the kind of work you need to do because you're not going to have all the bogged down and slow speed from all of the rat spies out of the Middle East, like the Israeli trash, or Utah with the filth there, et cetera, et cetera. So the spies just aren't around to bother you. And that means they're not bogging down the mechanism, which is being just grossly overloaded. Everybody's complaining, guys, it's the spyware. It's the rat garbage. There's more people watching your junk that you don't know about than there are people that are watching your stuff publicly. Okay? They've got a whole career track on this garbage, and they're all worthless, parasitic turds doing it. They're living vicariously through your life, okay? Just a heads up on that. Anyway, want to say hi to all of our friends out there in Lower 49, including the great state of Jefferson, CONUS, the outlying 2 states, the outlying 2 territories, and, of course, the clock. Right now it is 5:10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, gray and medium temperatures outside. We got standing water. I mean, what's really great, we got standing water in the creek that's on the map, but only there seasonally when we have enough water to make the creek flow. So we got a creek right now. Great anti-vehicle trap, by the way. Anybody step in it, they don't really realize what kind of a quagmire it is. It'd be fun to watch. Anyway, also, for our friends out there on the clock, I would remind everyone that we're counting down the days to the 20th for the protest in Richmond. Don't know who all is going to attend. Have a lot of people that are asking. And we're working on the project to do just basically intel collection on the bad guys. That's really where you get an opportunity here. If we surround them surrounding you, we can watch them come, go, left, right, and watch all the back alleys, all the parking structures, the upper floors of the buildings where they'll try to be up on the, hang up on the roofs, that kind of garbage. Guys, who's watching the watchers? All of us are watching the watchers and making notes, taking names, getting license plates, vehicle ID, whole 9 yards. Just that's how it's going to work. Anyway, today's date, well, it is the 14th of January, the official end of the second week of January. There's only 50 weeks left. Oh, my God, what are we going to do? We only have 50 weeks left to arrest Hillary. But we already had 156 weeks before these 2 weeks that just passed, in which we did nothing about arresting Hillary, and now they're not going to do jack squat. So I'm not really holding my breath. It's just that comical, farcical, all those kosher mafia criminals in the district of criminals, they just keep chugging along. But it is, of course, the 12th year of Open Fabian, the Socialist, and the Soviet Socialist occupation of America with a K, 2020. Old Earth calendar, 2020, year of betrayal, year of conflict. Now, it is Communications Tuesday, and I would point out, we just mentioned antennas earlier. There's a couple of nice ones that are really not too sophisticated, but they are more sophisticated in the way that they look. There are a couple of models that have been put out there in the system over at the truck stops that look like they're CB radio antennas that look like VHF, UHF / 800 mega antennas. They're no more expensive or less expensive. They do look neat. I mean, they're streamlined. They're black and black so that they look like they're part of the cool contour of your car as opposed to standard CB antennas. Now, I don't care either way. But again, if they run out of the standard Little Willies and everything else you're oh so familiar with, then get the others for the time being to get up to speed, to get a radio going, a radio online, which will be good for intermediate and short range at least. And you probably work better than that. But we'll just say, remember, you're not trying to shout across the county. You're actually trying to talk from vehicle to vehicle or in your area of activity. Which is how you need to look at this. And if you want better, then you might have to go outside the area if the cars are in need and you are short at the local truck stops. Inventories are not deep. The economy is not strong, contrary to any BS they've tried to generate. $6 trillion was slid sideways over to the from the Federal Reserve over to the banks to prop them up. $6 trillion for foreclosures and losses, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. So read that. The Jewish mafia thieving the digits out of the country, and now it's over in Haifa and Tel Aviv and, Jerusalem, okay? That's where it's going. It's just they're ripping us off, and they're milking the country out of all the digits before they collapse, whatever they're going to do. When that happens, know who to blame. You get rid of all of the foreign bankers that you can find and hunt them down, and you'll be doing fine. You'll be just remember, open season. That's all there is. Don't lament. Somebody has a house foreclosure, tell them the international bankers did that to you. No, don't commit suicide. Why don't you go find them? Everybody needs to start talking to people who are like, maybe they're not in your sphere, but they're like lamenting about what's happening. Well, the bankers are at fault. The bankers are at fault. Whenever you see that person, keep planting that seed and stir the pot with them, and remind them that if you're going to go crazy, don't blame your family. Don't get upset. Go get rid of the problem that is the problem that caused your problem. Yeah. And who knows? Soros may not be with us anymore, or any number of other characters are on the list. Just tell them to keep looking at all the blab, the omni-blab garbage out there on the nightly news where they're puffing up, and understand. See those ones that they're puffing up? Those are the ones that did it to you. There's a nice way to put a torpedo in the water, and you don't have to do much anything other than stand and watch and eat some popcorn, as they say. Which I don't eat. I'm not going to be eating popcorn while I'm getting ready to go to war. But I'm eating popcorn as a snack in between. So another thing here, real quick, with those antennas. Yes, you can tune them. The SRW meter is going to work with them just fine. You can adjust, so you need to reset them within the nest, within the base. Another thing is don't throw any antennas out. Now, right now, for a lot of you, it's not worth fixing something. But if you have something, we can fix it. Making it from coat hangers and all kinds of other improvised garbage, to me, when there's a tool that can be rebuilt, well, hang on to the old one. Now, in many cases, like what I just got the other day here, I still haven't gone through them all. I've got a whole pile of magnet mount antennas. In fact, I was looking at one. I realized, I should have tightened down one of those little hex nuts because the main line, the main rod on the upper part of the insulator, the oil pot, is laying in the box somewhere. I got to find it. So be careful on that. Always look at the stuff when you buy it. And if something's loose, don't think about fixing it later. Fix it right now. Oh, that should be tightened down just so it doesn't get displaced, okay? Another thing, as we've said a million times, if you're buying radios, don't power anything up until you make sure that the antenna is properly connected to the rear end of that box. I don't care what radio it is. If you buy a little box radio, one of these little Baofeng, if you buy one of the Baofeng radios, or, it can be Motorola, or it can be, Kenwood. Kenwoods are all Chinese made, same place Baofengs are. All the small ones anyway. Before you do anything, if it has an add-on antenna where you have to screw the antenna in, stop. Read the manual, but before in proper order, mount the antenna, before you put any power into the radio. This way there can be no mistakes made. You're not going to do any damage to any of the microcircuitry or some part of one of the sub-circuits by putting a load on board but having no place for the load to be discharged, for it to go. If it can't go out that antenna, it will find electricity is like water. It follows the path of least resistance in terms of, whoa, there's not enough protection there, and it will cook some part or blow, or if you're lucky, there's a fusible system. Not so much with usually these smaller units. So there's not going to be a little stick that you can, a little dipstick you can tack kind of like a breaker and put everything back online. It doesn't work that way. Instead, all of your radios, I don't care how big, I don't care how small, before you put any power or a load on them, you make sure those antennas are hooked up. That's the first religious part of Radio 101. Hook the antenna up first. That way you can never make a mistake. You might, I don't know how you really grossly overpower anything. You can't, because what is regulated through the board and through the radio you buy, it's going to get whatever the factory told it to, deliver. That's all there is to it. Unless you, add, again, as we've said, linear amplifiers, and that's at the other end on the outbound side. Amplifiers from that end, not a problem. Just a matter of beware. Some of the little cheapy antennas aren't going to handle that load, so you might be turning some things into toasters. Some antennas, you don't want to do that. Another thing, batteries. And by the way, did you buy more batteries? Good. Cheap batteries, expensive batteries, all batteries are good. It's just some batteries last longer than others, and some batteries, if they puke out on you, are going to also get messy on you, and that creates more maintenance than you need. So the Dollar Tree batteries, I buy hundreds. I think I've got thousands of them sitting here right now. Every time I go over to Dollar Tree, no matter where it is, we usually get another 8-pack or 10-pack of AA's and AAA's at least, sometimes more. Why? $1 a piece for 20, for 10 batteries, because they got the blisters of 10, they've got the blisters of 8, and there's also 6s. And it's the same battery, the red and white Sylvanias or whatever they are. And there's other brands. They got some blue one when I haven't paid attention what name they put on that. They're all the same basic battery. You can buy more expensive, and there are more expensive where you get only 4 batteries, but they are a little better grade of battery, in theory, at least they claim. Any of the higher-end batteries will last about 24 hours to 26 to up to 28, depending on what kind of an energy sipper these little handheld FRS radios or Baofangs are. We've run them now nonstop, traveling for just as an experiment, because we know where the radio is going to be. We just leave it on. How long will it last with dollar store batteries? 24 to 26 hours. Pretty stinking good for a couple of AAA batteries. Okay, and leaving them at standard volume, leaving them power on. So that means that for 20 cents, 30 cents, I can run for 24 hours. Well, 2 batteries or 3 batteries, depending which radio. So 24 hours for a whopping maybe 15 to 20 cents. That's not bad for a single radio. So that's time. Remember, it's always calculate time on target, guys. You're buying time is what you're doing when you're paying for stuff. Better batteries do last longer, 28, 30 hours, maybe a little longer still. You're typically not running radios that long nonstop. I mean, you're going to, at some point, turn them down and shut the whole net down. You also, like we've said about radio discipline, you turn your radio net on at 9 o'clock. Everybody listens. When you're all done, you shut it back down except for one monitoring unit. If there's an emergency, the monitoring unit is where the fire brigade is. And when somebody calls out for help, then you light up the grid, and everybody starts doing their job. But you minimize on the radio. Minimize. Always minimize. Okay? One of the biggest problems or mistakes made is the radio is not a cell phone. In a military environment especially, radios are not a cell phone. They're not talker jabbers, okay? It is a tool, a surgical tool. The more you use it, the more you become a target. Always remember that. Another thing with batteries is have a storage system. Now, even when you run a battery down, you let it sit for a little bit. You've all done this. You'll get some juice out of it. So have a marker, a Sharpie or a magic marker, dollar store type is fine. Spread them out amongst the troops if they got radios. Put it right in the radio pouch. And when you have a battery set that's gone down to minimum, mark it. You can date it even if you want to. That's fine. Set it in another pocket or Ziploc bag, whatever you got for storage. and hang on to it. A battery with 5 or 10 minutes worth of life is better than no batteries and sucking vapors not being able to communicate. Again, you wait, you let them charge back up, they reaccumulate charge, and what you do is you pop them in, you turn it on during the designated time, you burst signal for the shortest period of time possible, and shut the radio back down. There's even a code that is used to identify transmitter limited. Okay, in other words, power supply limited. Attention, attention, attention. Power supply limited. You can use like a code 12, code 402, or a letter code. And everybody knows, listen, because this transmitter isn't going to. This transceiver is only going to last so long. And you put out the signal. The signal is repeated 3 times, if at all possible, before power goes out. If the batteries are that close, you still repeat the request, the order, the signal 3 times, and then you shut down. It's expected by everybody because you gave a limited transmitter code. Attention, attention, attention. Okay? This is a technique whereby even your minimal equipment can be used to its maximum end result. We're going to pull every dollar, penny, and every minute or moment of time we can out of every piece of equipment we have. Okay, it's just that simple. You'll have to. You're going to find that very quickly people are wasteful. They aren't paying attention. You can tell people and give them a class, and the stooge will walk right out of that classroom and do just the opposite because some other nitwit told them to. I've seen this a million times. Doesn't mean how hard you try. There will be 20% will be dupes, that will, hey, you didn't know what he's talking about. So, of course, then you end up with problems right from the get-go. It's kind of like scout riders during the Civil War with, what Stewart was a problem in himself. But what, Stonewall Jackson addressed as an issue about communications is that initially their biggest problem was, there was not a priority on communications with regard to discipline. And the non-adult discipline cost time and people. So what they progressively learned is you find the men who are disciplined, who actually are focused and paying attention, you call out the ones who are, doing the goofiness, and that means that your communications are consistent and will address the issue properly. Either in dispatch riders, couriers, or radio operators. Doesn't make any difference. They have to be focused, and that means discipline. Anal retentive discipline, it would seem, but no, it's called survivability. Okay. Oh, let's see, what else do we have? Carry bags. Watch for more and more bags. There's all kinds of ways you can carry spares, but come up with a system and try to make it consistent so that you can ID it. Remember, mark your equipment whenever possible. Medical equipment should be effectively marked. Radio communications equipment should be effectively marked. You can do a piece of add-on tactical colored cloth tape. You can use tactical colored duct tape. Not where it's out there going to shine or reflect a lot, but where it can be found. Everybody knows to look, same location. You can even mark it under a flap that can be released without totally exposing everything, and confirm that, okay, that's an R46 unit, blah, 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 blah. I got so many batteries, blah, 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 blah. Everything's listed right there. If you have to either use the equipment or maybe you have to pilfer something, batteries being very common. The idea is to mark or note that you have missing equipment now from that kit, and it needs to be replenished as quickly as possible or as soon as can be possibly accommodated. Other technology. We've talked about helmets, and then there's helmet-mounted radios. There's all kinds of solutions there. It's funny, they're making the head more and more exposed for an opportunity for shrapnel and a bullet by doing all these beanie caps, which apparently you're supposed to think look really cool, but really, really, really defeat the purpose behind why you're wearing a helmet. Just a little heads up there. The equipment and the technology could be built, for that matter. Let me point out that the standard Kevlar helmets, which offer more side protection, with throat mics and flat fixture earmuffs, the way they're built now, there's no reason not to be using a better protection helmet that offers more cover and, shielding from the brain, and also the jaw, which is kind of another thing to have handy, being able to still be able to move your jaw and, eat, drink, and talk. Kind of nice. These are some of the things taken into consideration. Now, throat mics aren't always your first choice, and you don't carry just one microphone system of microphone on your person with your radio gear. Any of you guys that were running the PRC 25s or 77s or 90s or any of the vehicle-mounted, guys, in your kit, you have an option for a headphone set separate with a handheld microphone, much like what you see, a handheld microphone, much like what you see in a cop car or on a CB radio or on any of the box-type radios that would be in a vehicle, except much more industrial, much heavier grade. With regard to the handsets, remember, built like a brick doghouse. This is why I like to find older Ma Bell telephone. You have Southern Electric and a bunch of others, or Southern Bell. The older telephones are great for making into field phones down the road because they're built like a brick doghouse. They'll also handle a lot of abuse. The old military handsets, same way. Trying to find something like that in a new piece of equipment, not so easy. And in fact, they are making a copy. I don't know if you guys have noticed this. They're making a copy for all of your Baofeng radios. That is I don't know how good it is, and I doubt that it has the thickness or the density of the material that the original radios like the PRC 77 handsets or 25s or ANPRC 8, 9s, and 10s, that handset, they make a copy of now for your Kenwoods, your Baofeng, all of them. So if you're looking for an RO-type handset in the traditional format, they're being made. You can go over to Wish. You can go over to Deal Extreme. I think Wish.com has them in stock. Remember, they have a sliding scale. You can pay any stupid price you want for those. What you want to find is the cheapest price with the cheapest shipping combination. But they are available. So if you want to go that way, so it's something you're very familiar with, plus it, again, can be beefed up a little bit, even if the plastic is only a quarter, and it probably will only be a quarter the density of the original material, plus a different chip, it is a familiarity thing. One of the first things that I would do with those, I haven't had one yet, I've been looking at buying one, just because I want to test them. The best way to reinforce them, cloth tape. You go with cloth friction tape all the way around and, sculpt it and wrap it. Well, why not duct tape? Duct tape is slippery. Cloth tape is not. Okay? That's one of the things about when I say cloth tape, friction tape. Now, there's a number of different options on that. You can get it in tactical colors now, grays, greens, browns. But having it in the friction tape, it also is subdued. It's not going to reflect when it comes to light, which is kind of nice. And I don't know what quality of plastic. Like I said, they are there. They make them in every one. They make these handsets. They look just like the traditional military handset a lot of you guys are familiar with. They make them for the Kenwoods. They make them for the Baofeng. They make them for the Tao, whatever those are. They with a TAI, blah, blah, blah. There's a bunch of other ones, okay? And you've got to pay attention when you order these things. Yeah, I should mention that again. Over at Deal Extreme, for instance, they will show the same picture for 10 different units. They are different. Pay attention to the nomenclature. Make sure that if you're buying one of those, buy the right one for your radio. It will tell you. It says military type headset, blah, 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 copy or duplicate or classic, whatever term they use. And then if you'll pay attention, it will tell you Kenwood, model, blah, blah, blah. And it'll list how many it works. Baofeng, however many models it works. And they have another Baofeng for the other ones. So you need to pay attention. You need to focus. You're all adults out there. You can handle this, but you got to make sure. Don't complain about the other guys selling it to you when you screw up, because it's at the buyer beware. They've already explained, hey, this is different. They've already got the nomenclature there. You need to pay attention and focus. Get the right tool for the toolbox. That's how it works. Speaking of tools for the toolbox, by the way, this is Communications Tuesday. Tomorrow is Weapons Wednesday. Today is Communications Tuesday. So, Ed, if you could, Teresa's Stand Up and Fight. Now, again, it's a metal band. They actually have a bunch of other music. They're not a brand new band, by the way. But Teresa's Stand Up and Fight. If we could play that for the bottom of the hour break, I should have given it to you 10 minutes ago. But a really cool piece. There is a video on YouTube. And they're also, it's been around long enough, it is actually a cover piece, and there's a number of other bands that have done the same song. I mean, it's been around a little bit, okay? And apparently somebody liked it because people copied it. So Teresa's/Stand Up and Flex. We'll be back. That is a French repertoire. Yes, mon Dieu. We are going to fight for liberté. All right? Equalité, égalité, oh mon Dieu. Anyway, we are going to end up having to, deal with the problem, and that means using the weapons we've got. Signal communications also, if you are training, everybody needs to train together. Now, I will remind everybody, KISS, keep it simple, stupid. The more complicated a piece of radio equipment is, the fewer people are going to be able to effectively operate it. Now, Mark, you always say that everybody's capable. Yes, they are, but we probably aren't going to have enough time to train everybody the way you need to. So remember, most of your radio equipment needs to be the simplest design. Military learned this a long time ago. Also remember, under fire, under duress, maybe injured, bloody eyeballs hanging out of one socket, you're kind of demi-functional, but you're still holding the handset, you're trying to work the radio, and you're trying to work the machine to get the air support or the artillery or just somebody else to come in and get your hairy hind end out of trouble. Well, KISS, keep it simple, stupid, so that you don't, unfortunately, hit a dial wrong or hit a button. The more complicated, the more likely this will happen. And you be screaming for help, and you can be cursing the bastards because they're not listening to you, but you hit a switch or you turn the dial and you're actually so far off frequency that nobody can hear you, and it's your fault because you screwed up. It has happened many, many, many times under the best of conditions and the best of training. So for this reason, you need to discipline your people to practice with the equipment they have. What this means is you do need to have a sit-down class where everybody gets a chance to see what's going on and how things work. Get it into the brain pan somewhere. Maybe not everybody will remember everything, but you expect performance from your people, okay? Proper planning prevents piss-poor performance. Radio technology with military radios, if you handle any military backpack-mounted radios or even some of the handheld, you might recall there's an actual lockdown nut, like a butterfly nut, that actually you torque down so that the resistance is that much greater. Someone can't just booby bump your frequency card there and move things. You really don't want that, okay? If you've locked into a frequency, you're locked in for a reason. It can be, in fact, in many cases, you may have a secondary frequency. Make sure that you clearly identify and understand what that frequency is. And even when you do switch to it, make sure that you get a handshake back before you proceed. If you do not, something is wrong with your equipment. It may just be your squelch. Second most common mistake made, I'm shouting at the buggers and they're not responding. They're just not telling me, oh, you buggers, you abandoned us. No, your brain abandoned you and you forgot to pay attention to the rest of your equipment. And lo and behold, the squelch isn't where it's supposed to be, and they're shouting right back at you, but you can't hear a word. They're trying to get your attention, and it's not doing them a darn bit of good. Nobody's panicking, by the way. This is one thing about real individuals who are serious about radio. You are not going to panic. There isn't going to be any drama. Throw all the movie garbage out. If you want to understand the level of, quote-unquote, if you want to call it professionalism that you need to attain, I want you to listen to, I'll tell you what, go over to YouTube and listen to air traffic controllers talking to stricken aircraft before crash. Unlike Hollywood, with all the drama queen garbage going on, pay attention, listen to the people. They are doing their job per requirement to try and, keep everybody calm, try to, allow for the operator at the other end, even though they may be panicking, depending on the situation, the pilot, whatever, to the point where, again, you're trying to bring some calm back, maybe at the last moment. Maybe there's something that they might realize. If you can stabilize the situation, if you can do something to, something to allow the individual to more intently focus on the problem. Immediately somebody goes, whoa, problem there, they're going to die, they're going to crash any second. Well, you know what? You just never know. But for that reason, there is a standard policy. Again, there is a demeanor, and there is a standard that is to be established, and it is to try and, again, do everything you can from a distance, which is always frustrating. I've talked about this many times. You're in the 21st century. It's actually crappier than the 20th century when it comes to radio, despite what anybody says. All you've got is more junk that really doesn't work well, and it's having more and more problems. Have you noticed that? The computers, everybody's having more and more problems. The cell phones, everybody's having more and more problems. If you switch over to conventional radio right now and you actually focus on what I'm talking about, the first thing you're going to notice is there's a lot of the frustration's gone. But they're intentionally creating in people. Has anybody noticed this? I really, really, really believe that the cell phone keypad, as much as anything, is designed to be a monkey screw for most people's heads. We shouldn't be that small. Let me put it this way. We've been able to build calculators for a long time. But they learned real quick with calculators there's a certain diminishing return. When you go so small, it really doesn't save time. And your fingers haven't gotten any tinier, okay? So with the better calculators, they've already done an ergonomic test. They know that, this works best to get the job done. The size of the machine really can't get much smaller. Those that are not professional models, like, say, for actual mathematical equation and true scientific work, they're not going to get any smaller. They don't need to be. They're pocket type, but there's a certain point at which there is a diminishing value or return in a tiny piece of equipment. If it was occasionally used, that'd be one thing. But look at how many people are dying on the highways or getting their butts wrapped around a tree or stuck in a ditch because they're trying to take those big-ass thumbs they've got and operate some tiny-ass little keypad on a cell phone with a touchpad on a cell surface screen, which is even worse. Okay? So fact of the matter is that with most of the technical equipment or most of the equipment in the field, unless it's a spyware item or unless, again, it's an emergency item where you're trying to save space and you got to carry a bunch of other junk. Example of that is radio equipment for instance, for a pilot. I would point out that even though they have a space and weight accommodation for an air crewman, that they've already settled this years ago about what size and what dimensions on certain things will not be scaled down simply because it's not efficient. It's not worth the cost, and it's more reliable to go with a bulkier, heavier piece of equipment than something that's a tiny top piece of garbage that pretty much once it fails quick, fails fast, and doesn't work again. Okay, there's the best way to describe it. So, again, when you're using a lot of this equipment, pay attention. There's, for instance, in 2-meter radios, there's a really nice batch of 90s to aughts, mostly in the 90s, and a lot of them even still from the 80s, that are solid state. Obviously, they aren't going to be tube, but they are 2-meter radios that are actually a little bulkier. They're relatively cheap because they're not state-of-the-art. They're not tiny tots like the new, lightweight garbage. But when the lightweight garbage goes, it's dead. These radios that we're talking about that are in that particular window of time could be rebuilt. Components that are damaged could be replaced. With most of the newer stuff, you're paying top dollar, outrageous price, and if something goes wrong with it, that thing is done. That's just the only way to describe it. There's nothing more you can do to fix it. There's nothing you can do for it. I don't care what kind of a Star Trek space whiz you claim to be, unless you have certain, workbench and laboratory technology in the field, and it ain't going to happen. You're only going to get so much out of that piece of equipment, but when it fails utterly. So this is why understand the limitations of all of the different pieces of equipment that are out there that you have available. There's a certain window of time and a certain size or format that is much more desirable. Fewer mistakes can be made. Now, that's livable, like, for instance, the FRS radio. Somebody just asking about that, last couple of, emails I saw a week ago. Well, more than a week ago now. Forgive me, I probably should have addressed it last week on Tuesday. Example, the FRS radios come in many different sizes. The basic pad format is the same, if you'll notice, and that's how, if you look, it's kind of like the old CB radios or the old 2-meter radios. Yeah, they might have a different name on them, but it didn't take you long if you lifted the lid or if you just paid attention to the controls. You knew which of the motherboards and which of the basic control systems who it was bought from. Was it a Midland? Was it like a Cobra? Was it any number of different companies back in the day? Too numerous to mention because there are many, many, many. Whatever the name was, it was pulled out. Their basic components came from the same 5-6 sources as far as the basic system. And other than changing the doodads on the outside to try and make you believe you were getting a different radio, you weren't under the hood, okay, for the dozens and dozens of different brands. The same is true right now. As I mentioned, the Kenwoods are out there. Well, if you take a look at a Kenwood, other than the connectors, you might notice they're coming from the same factory that the Baofengs are coming from. So obviously at a certain point they're running down the line, they change out the few components and the shells, and the basic radio comes down the line. You're paying more for the Kenwood. I don't know that you're getting any more. I mean, I really don't. There are a few features usually on Kenwoods that are making them desirable, but in this case, these are all China Sport models with the same base mother, system. I would say 6 one way, half a dozen the other probably. With regard to controls, again, simple, KISS. If you go too complicated, one knob or one button can be pushed, and it completely discombobulates whatever effort you're trying to, whatever you're trying to accomplish, to be able to get signal out or to receive signal coming in. Okay. Oh, what else do we have? Camouflage. Remember, spray paint is your friend. If you got chrome, tape it over if you want. There's all kinds there. Again, if you got chrome on some of the radios, somebody's asked before about the CBs. Just break out the camouflage duct tape that's out there, or the camouflage tactical tape, and go to town on the areas that need to be dechromified. Just break out a straight razor, a razor blade, and map it out. Make sure you do larger panels. The smaller pieces will roll off eventually, but a small but well cut and trimmed panel that overlaps to the lip of a frame cover and all the rest of the nonsense will lock in, and typically it's going to take time for it to break down and wear out before it rolls off or peels off the equipment that you've taped. Just little tricks there. Plastic bags, Ziploc bags. I'll tell you one that Nancy has here that really would be good for a lot of your radio gear. They're pie covers and cup covers. They're actually elasticized, cheap. The Dollar Tree has them right now, Nancy's saying. And it's $20 for $1 for the average size. But for covering like radio control areas, but still not covering the whole radio, just the working surface areas, this is not a bad solution. In fact, I would go so far as to say if you have pieces of equipment that are in storage, let's say you're parking tactical vehicles, but they're cock locked and ready to rock and roll. Let's say you have your radios and everything on board. These covers are elasticized for doing pie plates and things where you have food prepped and you want to cover it to keep the bugs and bugaboos out or to keep the freshness in, and maybe the bugaboos too. What you do is you use this to cover the face of the radio. What's it work for? It's a dust cover. And by the way, it's clear. So the neat thing is you can actually see what's going on underneath the cover, but it's elasticized, and it'll conform to whatever you have in the way of a frame there. And the radio, while it's sitting there in storage, is actually being dust prevention, moisture, prevention just in case. The atmospheric condition and effect. It's not perfect. It's not perfect seal or anything, but it does eliminate a lot of little piddly dirt and stuff, the grime that builds up. With radio communications equipment, this is always a problem. It's why another thing you need to have is a little brush kit. Get some of the real fine, soft brushes. Guys used to always carry, with the Grands and the 14s, if you know what you're doing, you carry a shaving brush for shaving cream. Those little horse bristle brushes were perfect for getting just doing a quick dusting on stuff around the sights, around any of the operating areas. Works really well with electronics, too, for just getting, with a light touch. You don't want to beat anything. You don't need to scrub on anything. You just need to brush the dust away, keep the crud away from the contact surface or the channels that get to the contact surface areas. These are all little tricks of the trade. And a little kit isn't hard to build up. In fact, you can go to the Dollar Tree and get most everything you need for that I'm talking about. Off the shelf and ready to roll, so you can put a quick kit together. Okay? Even get a little chintzy bag if you want to, so everything kind of stays together, and put that in your utility bag. There's all kinds of stuff that's out there. Of course, I always go to the resale shops and watch for the stuff they're chucking because they get more money than brains. They aren't appreciative of whatever you donate, and because they always figure there's going to be more. The characters don't want to sort or do their job. I love that. It's great. We get more goodies, and we get it for free. So that's another solution. Oh, we're almost to the top. I wanted to really hammer on radios. We're going to war. And because we were going to end up in a shooting situation, guys, we now have to prioritize. We need to get things done. Now, everybody can have their tasks, their individual tasks. So if you're the radio operator out there, you need to be sitting down with, first of all, get everybody to sit down. You need to discuss what are the standards and parameters for the unit, for the group. They then need to, once they've established those parameters, then you need to execute action. Not you, but everybody. I know one person is probably going to buy the radios for the whole group. So you're all going to have to break down and do this at once on your own. The FRS radios are still the fastest, cheapest solution. There's all kinds of FM radios out there. FM's great. That's tactical military, the way it traditionally has been for a long, 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 long time. Short, sweet transmission, clean, quiet, not a whole lot of back fuzz while you're talking, which is especially critical. If you're going to be doing any of this, spare parts, backup radios too, or additional radios. And look at it this way. You're a certain size group right now, but you're recruiting, and especially right now, so many people are getting swamped with the amount of information and the technology they're interested in. Okay, well, because of that, you need to ensure that you have spares ready to be able to outfit and equip, just like a 510 program. The 510 program equipment should be the very technology that you are definitely going to be using if you get into a fight. If you are, going to be outfitting additional troops, they need to be copacetic with your primary unit. And so you cherry pick the technology that works best or makes sense with regard to your formation's SOP, standard operating procedure. Now, another thing, ammunition. Oh, and by the way, then more ammunition. The other thing about this thing escalating is those who carry enough into the field, especially for whatever tactical contact they make, whoever runs out first is in trouble. Whoever still has ammunition left wins. Okay, it's that simple. Bat faggots at Waco the first day, which is the day of victory. When the bat faggots came out to attack, they ran out of ammo, and only then did they want to talk. Before that, they were trying to have blood in their eyes. They wanted to murder the Branch Davidians. They planned on doing that from the beginning. They fumble-screwed that, and the rest is history with regard to the siege. Understand that, again, if you're going to be supporting people who are being attacked in, for instance, in a situation in Virginia, if you're not on your base and you aren't coordinating with the people at the other end, you don't know what they're standard on, although it's nice that most people have the basics down. You need to be prepared so that you're not a burden on your local supply system where you're going to be plopping in for the few minutes or the day or the half day or the day worth of fighting that might go on. You break contact, things get stable. Now you head home. You want to make sure that you have the ability to continue to fight. Always strip the enemy dead, everything they have. Now, you may want to start prioritizing, because most of you do not have automatic weapons. I will point out the enemy dead will have automatic weapons. Take the automatic weapons and employ them and give them to individuals who are experienced, but also, for instance, if you have a squad, it may not be as heavy a gun, but give your squad automatic weapons designated personnel. If you acquire or you were able to recover automatic weapons from the enemy, prioritize them to where they would normally be within the formation. And make sure that you scavenge every stinking round you can. Plus, right from the get-go, we're recovering brass. I don't care if the guns are shot, broken, or whatever. Everything gets scraped up off the battlefield and carried away. That means garbage bags. But remember this. Also, you're going to have an integrated system, or you're going to start working on an integrated system to process the expendables, the expended materials, back to the rear. How many of you know that when you throw a grenade, the grenade body, the grenade fuse typically survives? How many of you know that? You ever thrown a grenade? How many of you out there have thrown a grenade? You think it all turns to powder? Guess what? That fuse is still out there. So you see any spoons laying around, or if you pull a pin, pocket them. No, we wouldn't normally do that because you got lots of buckets of grenades somewhere that I didn't know. That's fine, but I don't give a squat. If you pull a pin, retain it. If you can recover the spoons, you recover them. Why? Well, down the road, there's that anti-personnel IED device. There's your fuse right there. You don't have to fuse it. It's going to be a 0-point fuse when you reload it. In other words, when it snaps and caps, boom, that's it. Kind of nice to have throwaways like that, so you don't take your store-bought factory grenade fuses from the DOD or from the Russians or whoever you happen to be pulling them from. The really good ones, you save those for more important tasks. But for your regimental / your field grade equipment, you scavenge and you make, for instance, fragmentation from crushed cases, not the good ones, crushed or broken pieces of brass, chunks of fragmentation laying around. That stuff all gets scavenged back up, and that's what goes around the next charge. It has that tired but still usable fuse, that grenade body, or not body, fuse body. And again, you put a squib on the end of that instead of a fuse. When you pull the pin from a distance with a piece of fishing line, boom! Oh, that messes up someone's day. But that's the plan, because they're coming out, if they're coming for the guns, to try and kill you. That simple. So, proper planning prevents piss poor performance. We're going to be doing this from the get-go, not when we're short. And how do we figure out how to make it work? We're short. Shouldn't be short from the right from the get-go. You should be already thinking ahead to making sure that being short doesn't happen. We got the thinkers, they got the stinkers. Show me. You got to apply what it is we're talking about. Anyway, applying, we got to talk about time too. We're going to do this on time. We got top of the hour break coming up here, and then we are going to be back with the second hour. For everybody out there, I want to say thank you again to all of our friends for supporting us for the end of the year billing. We accomplished the goal. You guys made that happen. Thank you. God bless our republic. Death to the New World Order. We shall prevail, ladies and gentlemen. The Empire's on the run. We're on a march, and we're going to sail out of here with Gunship. Fly for your life.
Located in the heart of Ohio's country, let us help you find the right shotgun or rifle for you. Or if you're looking for a pistol or concealed carry, we have a nice selection of compact and subcompact pistols for that too. Check out our website at www.freedomsguardian.com. That again is www.freedomsguardian.com. Go to the website and check out our selection today.
We all need to prepare ourselves. You might have the food, water, gold, and silver, but ask yourself, are you truly prepared? That's why you need to visit MainMilitary.com. MainMilitary.com carries everything you need. Gas masks, fire starter kits, high-capacity magazines, chemical suits, military surplus items, and much more. Do you own a firearm? MainMilitary.com has a large selection of pistols and rifles suited for your needs. Are your local stores sold out of ammunition? Call or visit them today for prices on hard-to-find ammo and bulk ammo orders. You don't need to worry about having a military surplus store in your area because MainMilitary.com is the only store you'll ever need, all from the comfort of your computer. Visit them online today at MainMilitary.com. That's Maine, like the state, military.com.
Government control to those who do you harm, so they could burn down churches and seize the family farm, and keep our country deep in debt, put men of God in jail, harass your fellow countrymen while corrupted courts prevail. Your public servants don't uphold the solemn oaths they've sworn. Your daughters visit doctors, so their children will be born. Your leaders send artillery and guns to foreign shores, and send your sons to slaughter, fighting other people's wars. Can you regain the freedoms for which we fought and died? Or don't you have the courage or the faith to stand with pride? And are there no more values for which you'll fight to save? Do you wish your children live in fear, be a slave? O sons of the Republic, arise, take a stand, defend the Constitution, the supreme law of the land. Preserve our great republic and each God-given right. And pray to God, keep the torch of freedom burning bright. As I awoke, he'd vanished in the mist from whence he came. His words were true. We are not free, but we have ourselves to blame. For even now, as tyrants trample each God-given right, we only watch and tremble, too afraid to stand and fight. If he stood by your bedside in a dream while you were asleep, and wondered what remains of the freedoms he fought to keep, what would be your answer if he called out from the grave? Is this still the land of the free? Oh, free. God bless you. God bless Israel.
And good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is the second hour of the afternoon Intelligence Report. I'm Mark Hardy. One day closer to victory for all of our brothers and sisters, both on and behind the lines in occupied territories, Southwest, East, Northeast, and Southeast. Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to us on LibertyTreeRadio.4MG.com, IndianaFreedomTalkRadio.com, and we are on AM and FM micro stations, CB base stations, and UltraNet, Hallmark, and Golden Spike Technologies, east and west of the Mississippi, along with Alaska. Good afternoon to all of our friends out there in lower 49, which includes the great state of Jefferson, along with CONUS, the outlying two states, the outlying two territories, and the clock at 6:11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It is Communications Tuesday. It is the 14th of January. It is the 12th year of open Fabian Socialist and Soviet Socialist occupation of America with a K, 2020. Old Earth calendar, 2020, year of conflict, and the way we go. So, we were talking about communications, obviously, Communications Tuesday, and basic radio or RO ideas, stuff that you need to put into the brain pan. Most important is, remember, it's a very simple step-by-step process. First of all, when you pull a piece of equipment and you're running a piece of radio gear, go to 0 point with all of your dials and controls. Now, 0 point, depending on your school, is established two ways. 0 point is literally zero neutral point for everything that you have in the way of controls. Ohms are, everything is off. Everything is set to zero. Everything is, again, at what is not necessarily an operating point of control, but it is a benchmark for all of the equipment. And then follow SOP, Standard Operating Procedure, and adjust all of your equipment once all components are connected. Now, key point here, I will remind everybody, we don't touch the power on a piece of equipment because we can't replace it easily until we have a place for the signal to go. So, we're going to put everything at 0 point. We're going to make sure that our power supply is in the off, that whatever we've got for power, it says off, O-F-F. Know how that works. Everything is coded off. We're at 0 point with all of our dials, all of our controls. Then we are going to connect first the antenna. Then we are going to attach power supply. Now, if we have additional audio monitoring technology, speakers, or additional headsets for monitoring, then they can be included in between where we hook first the antenna up, then we attach all of our connective tissues, all of our sending and receiving technology. Then last, we apply power. We plug in the power supply, okay? We then go back to our controls and we set up and establish per SOP, Standard Operating Procedure, for your team, your unit, your organization, your institution, whatever you want to call yourself, I don't care. But you establish a standard, and that standard is then met with a first setting of all controls. Next may be follow-up or specific orders for operation for your rig or equipment for your team. And that's where you go to alternate frequencies or set unique frequencies, and you establish with all of the ROs right there, you determine that all of the equipment is set and in place. You will also do an impromptu / low-key, low-energy radio test. You don't transmit or ever produce or print any signal any larger than is necessary to get whatever the job is done. Minimal energy, minimal print, minimal power, minimal signature. From that point forward, then you follow SOP with regard to the need for signal. Okay? And then you're done. Basically, the finer points are established by whatever you've got in the way of an SOP manual that you've established, the classroom instruction you receive from your team leaders, with regard to purpose, need, and application, okay? So it's simple and straightforward. Keep it simple. Stupid is always the first rule with military operations for the sake of getting the job done. Too complicated or grossly overcomplicated, something is more likely to get messed up because the plumbing is too complicated. It's just that simple. Something's going the wrong way. Feces is going uphill. Unfortunately, cross pipe, cold and hot, hot and cold. Wait a minute, you're talking electronics, it still works the same way. goes into, goes onto. Okay, goes in, goes out. Sucking and blowing. See, air conditioning, plumbing, and electrical pretty much are all the same. The processes are very narrow, very specific. Radio operation is the same way. Oh, let's see. Now I want to get on a few other things. I had a couple of conversations here with people picking up some unique weapons in the last couple of weeks, last couple of days in some cases, because they found some great deals. Okay, somebody is, going to get panicky, and I haven't even addressed that yet. Be prepared for the cowardice that is going to ripple through the machine as the machine starts to move, okay, as the system starts to act. You need to be ready for that because you can acquire what are the other weapon systems for the fight probably at a better price, and again, with nobody knowing truly where they went when the time comes. There are going to be people, panty waists, etc., that are going to panic and want to get rid of their weapons. I was relating a story here. We had a person who used to listen, and of course, the wife, of course, was the reason for, going, limp-dink. But what's fascinating is she bought a brand new Barrett 50 cal, 5 cans of ammo, 6 cans, I don't know how many total. We had this happen more than once. And since everything, wasn't going right at that moment, had to get rid of all the food, had to get rid of, certain guns, and the Barrett was one of them. Hey, you got to get that out of my house. So all of a sudden, the $6,000-$7,000 Barrett became the $3,000 Barrett. You don't think we didn't swoop down on that? Now, that gun is now very safe, and nobody has a clue where the hell it is. Okay, there ain't no paperwork, and it goes back quite a bit. This is, of course, what the enemy is terrified of, that this is happening. Well, it is happened. It has happened a lot, and it should happen. That's part of the checks and balances system. The other thing is we got all the food for free. Now, it's like, this is all, like, off-the-shelf stuff that you would eat every day that they bought, but because it's not, politically correct to have food storage in your house, like any idiot that shows up is going to know, unless you're a mouthy twit and you're stupid enough to be telling your, like the people that are like, looking down on you, oh, you have food storage, oh, how peasant. I only buy food. I buy for every meal. I go to the store and buy the same canned goods that I could have had on the shelf and bought for a good sale price. I buy the same canned goods, but every meal. It really does happen. Nancy used to work, of course, as a cashier years ago. Some of these people come in every meal and shop and have nothing on the shelf, and they brag about it, which is like, oh, cool, that's okay. Who's going to starve first? But anyway, got, 4 or 5 pallets of food free. And because after all, it was horrible and terrible to have that in the basement where nobody could see it because the neighbors might find out, or their prissy little twit, friends might find out, like they needed to know anyway, right? See how stupid that is? But that's the kind of stupidity you're going to be dealing with here soon. In greater repetition, okay? So be ready for it. Have storage sites ready. This is where you're going to round out your caches. Now, I'm going to tell you something, and I'm going to say this on the air once. Don't try to talk these people out of doing what they think they want to do. Did you hear what I said? I want you to listen clearly to me. When somebody starts yapping about how they want to get rid of their guns, and you're standing there, it's like, really? What do you want for them? Oh, well, they're coming for the... If that panty waist is going to start that stuff, no problem. Just get them. And by the way, don't worry about any special friendly price thing because, as far as, you give them a better deal, more money for it. No. The more money, the more digits you have, the more guns can go into the war effort for less expense, which means you can pile up more gear in this last cycle during what's basically the coward cycle, okay? The same is true with food or anything else that you're running into. You in fact, try to get it for the best stinking price you can, like give away. And remind them, oh, yeah, the government's going to take them. They've already done they're going to do a buyback. I won't give them $50. Oh, I'll give you $150. You're only going to give you $50. I'll give you $150 for that. Don't even talk. Don't even try to convince them because, as I've said many times, I learned this a long time ago. You're only there for a few minutes. Whoever's got the bug up their hind end about being the coward and hand the stuff away is going to be there when you're done. Or it's in their mind already. Don't even think twice. Take everything you can get from them. They might know where your food is. Oh, my God. Yeah. And now here's the thing. Don't take it back and just keep piling it up where you are. Everybody has always told me how tough it is to get a second, a third, or a fourth, or a fifth cache in place. This is your chance. When somebody wants to get rid of their food stores, or they want to get rid of their munitions, or they want to get rid of especially weapons and munitions, grab everything you can. Ask them if is there anything else, slings. You got any other stuff that goes with this? Well, yeah, oh, that's right. I won't really need it. I'll give you another $10 for that. Well, I'm not being nice. Yes, I am. I'm being as nice as I need to be because it's what, again, it's where we are. But don't pass this stuff up. Don't go, oh, Bob, you could use it. Oh, I don't know. Oh, come on, Bob, you should keep it. Okay. And the moment you leave, the wife's there going, I told you to get rid of this. And so some other slob's going to show up that is not friendly, or they might even just, we'll take it to the police station. I saw a video on YouTube about taking it to the police station. We'll take it to the police station. Well, okay, then the cops are laughing their ass off. You notice they always have smirks when these idiots do this? Because it's like, yeah, right, it's going to be safe. Well, we're going to take care of it. And that'll be in that cop's collection before the end of the day. Every one of these nimrods and idiots that pulls this garbage, again, they're dupes. But again, better we have it and we put it in the inventory and make it disappear. You need to be prepping locations, secondary and third locations anyway, fourth locations, auxiliary sites, depots and storage. I would even go so far as to recommend, like, watch Sportsman's Guide, Apex, Apex Gun Parts has had some ammo can sales. I'll tell you, out west, who's really had some good buys on ammo cans, or at least good flat rates, reasonable prices, has been jgsales.com. jgsales.com. www.jgsales.com. Take the time, get those. Now, the FUDs are going to betray all over the place. Well, I don't see why you need that. Ergo, what they're going to do is they're going to try to lick. They're going to have their heads so far up the cop's arse that if they had a sphincter tightening, the head would pop up into the bowels and a lifeless corpse would fall to the ground. They're so far up the rear end and licking their hind end every step of the way. That, hopefully, again, if you can catch them on the roll, they're going to realize that they don't have a deal, or they'll be terrified of everything. If they're terrified of everything, that's the time to get what it is that they've got. Oh, you're right. I think they were after those pump shotgun 870s. No matter what length barrel, if they start doing the paranoid thing about everything or anything, push that paranoia, get those weapons, put them in the inventory, and make sure they disappear. Because otherwise, if we're like in this situation now, and you're already hearing it, you can already find this. In fact, you even got characters that I think working for the other side, period. Well, it's you just surrender your guns, or they're going to just take them and kill you. It's like, that's Fed. That's a state cop. Because they're priming the deck for when they come out to do what they're going to do, and you're all just supposed to go limp dink on them. And again, by the way, they decide to take the gun owner anyway. They found a bump stock, or they found something. Whatever it is, they'll find. The bat faggots are going to be there. Homeland Security is going to be there. All the rest of these pigs are going to be there, these little pieces of trash in the black uniforms. They're all going to be gloating over what they're going to steal that's never going to be on the books because it's going home with them anyway. And besides, the cop shops are going to do that to convince the cops that they need to go out and steal property. They have to give your stuff to them. So that's one of the way that they promote these bottom-feeding turds to do what they do. Oh, they get a good paycheck, too. You're paying for it all. Every way you're paying for this. You're paying for the destruction of America's freedoms. It's that simple. Now, again, ammo cans and also, again, storage systems of some kind. I would point out we're at the end of the Christmas/holiday cycle. Watch for those metal tins. I just moved some stuff today. And lo and behold, I saw some little mouse droppings. Now, I didn't see a lot of little mouse droppings, but any amount of little mouse droppings tells you rodentia is on the move. If you have medical supplies, if you have any kind of food stocks that are, again, not already in decent packaging, even if they are, the nibblers will get through. The pie tins, the cake tins, the candy tins are perfect for making sure that the niblets can't get through. What we've been doing with the freeze-dried food is the square cookie tins are out there in good force this year. One of the yard sales, we're going to have another one here. I got to check. It might be this weekend. If not, it's another week out. They have always have hundreds of the candy and cookie tins. I grab every one of them. Now, the square ones are really great for obvious reasons, because if you do it right, for instance, a lot of them are just about right, but they fit in the rectangular ones, modularly fit in the kitty litter buckets, the yellow ones. There's also white. The yellow ones that have the flip lid are perfect for being able to, if you want to really get paranoid in storage, and I do, you take the lid off, you line the the kitty litter bucket with a the heaviest gauge plastic bag that'll fit. And you got to make sure it's actually a little oversized. You want space. You want to make sure you got a flap on the top. And you line the bag, and then you take the cans and you stack them, and after you load them with, for instance, the freeze-dried food, or it can be any number of different food storage items, but you layer them in, put a can in, put another can in, put another can in, until you're to the top. Typically, you can do 6, depending how thick they are, obviously, 5 or 6 of these cans. But the rectangular ones fit perfectly. I mean, almost like, man, did they actually make these for this? I don't think so. But they work. And remember, there is a taper to the kitty litter buckets. They're a little smaller in the bottom. So if you have some that are smaller, be smart. Take the smaller ones and use them for the lower panel, lower level. Now, what's this good for? Well, that food that the other person is getting rid of, or gear or equipment, this is a great storage system. You put the material, especially the freeze-dried foods, inside, the pouches like the fruits. I've got them sitting next to me, a big box of them right now. They're going to go into another tin. The fruits from like Dollar Tree, the stuff that's available from other sources, you integrate and do mixes in each can and mark the can with just a little tag. Well, it takes a minute, and then you know exactly what's in them. You don't have to open this can, open that can. And what you do is each layer has a different mix with it, or it can have all the same kind of mix. That particular case has got all of what is an alpha mix. So many peach, so many strawberries, so many apples, so many tangerines, so many pears, so many whatever. So you got a good mixed fruit combination there. And when you get to the top, take the Ziploc, or the trash bag, sphincter it shut, roll it, and then tie it off the way you normally would, roll and tie, and then put the lid on, snap that down, and now you got a portable unit that is, you've got an outer hard shell, you got a plastic moisture reduction layer. You can actually even seal meal those if you want to, so you got to cut them open to get to them. Then you got the tin inside, and then you've got the regular pouch that all the stuff comes in. Now, that sounds like it's overly redundant, but it's not, because here's the thing. You see that kitty litter bucket? That's your issue bucket to the platoon. Then you take and open that up, and you've got individual tins you can hand out or you can stash in different locations, especially in the field where mice and critters are all over the place. Nothing's going to get to the food that's still in the tin inside the original retort pouches that your freeze-dried food comes in. See how that works? So again, prior proper planning prevents piss poor performance. Oh, by the way, if you have any slop room, depending on the kinds of cans or containers you have, here's the thing about the kitty litter buckets. How about you slide a couple of 55-gallon garbage bags sideways to silence the cans so that they don't make as much noise? And you can even put a bag in between each can so that when you're in the field, you've got more plastic bags and other material. Visqueen, you can put for instance, you can put tarps. Slide some of the dollar store tarps, or the Menards or whatever. Get the cheapest ones, 6x8s. Slide a couple of those in each bucket. It's a gimme. It's one of those things where it's additional material. Go one step farther. Make up a packet if you got room and there's still space under the lid. Take some Ziploc bags. Grab yourself some dollar store or Dollar Tree matches, and do a bunch of match bundles and slide those on top, inside Ziploc bags, inside another Ziploc bag, a bigger one. Wow, by the time you're done, all kinds of, this is a real goodie box when you open up that kitty litter bucket. Now, I do this with actually everything from medical gear, using the same containers to, let's see, what's the other thing that's really big? Well, of course, T-shirts and medical supplies. T-shirts, underpants, undershirts, and socks I've done thousands of in the last, well, a couple, more than a few thousand in the last year. Each one of these containers, one is, if it has a medical cross and an M on it, it's scrubs, undershirts, underpants, and sweats that are all medical supply type, or in a particular type and pattern too. They go with the medical support items, which are in green totes, okay, green roughneck totes. Doesn't matter what system you choose, just try to be consistent. So whenever I get the green roughneck totes, they're going to get filled up with medical supplies. Then on the outside, you have the black, black, red, like a Red Cross, only black. That way it's not going to stand out. Don't need a bullet magnet. And you can put med or put M on the marker on the outside, okay, on the tag. And you put it on the top, you put it on the side, you put it on the end. That way you don't have to rip something open or turn stuff around. You want to be able to look at it from one side or the other and be able to quickly identify. Now, color coding for storage like this for field use is better still. Now, another thing I'm going to remind everybody, if you've sent it in the field and it's used, it goes back with the empties and with the recyclables, and it's reused. It's going to get scrubbed out, going to get cleaned out, going to get reloaded. It's going back, and you'll see it hopefully a second, third, and fourth time in the field. If not, oh well, because it is a perishable. It's one of those things you could lose it in combat, could be lost in transport. You may never get it to where it needs to go. It may get burned wherever it already is. Get over that. Get used to it. You're going to war. Ideally, though, you're supposed to be husbanding your equipment and making sure that everything survives. So you got to make sure that, again, proper planning prevents piss poor performance. Okay? I keep applying that P principle motto to everything because it is what we're dealing with. You are going into a very, very, very serious, well, again, you're into the environment now. The enemy's already declared war. They've already acknowledged. We had our Goof Attorney General here in Michigan, the queer as a $3 bill Purpleite. I don't care what the name is. Who cares? Really. It's not hard to figure out. There's only one Attorney General, okay, the twit. Bragged that this plan for the gun confiscation, they planned it across the whole country. The governors got together. The Attorney Generals got together. They've got this big offensive going on. Well, you're right. It is. It's an offensive. Now we're going to teach them all about how that's not going to work too well. Okay? We're at the bottom of the hour. And again, Ed's been so patient. Hopefully he's right there. Ed, if you could, the Irish Brigade. Sorry, boys, but I've got a couple of mechanized people out here, and they're having a fun time. The only other, of course, the 8th MEC, the 8th Regimental Combat Team. Colonial Marines, they have and are scavenging armor helmets. I'll put the word out on that after we have our little music break. But the Irish Brigade, classic Civil War piece. And for all of you out there, guys, music. You want to pull all the battle music up you can. You need to have your own music mix. We got, there we go, Whip It Box.
Now ye that hold from Union away, Southern Confederates so bold. And I'll tell you some men for the Union who in northern ranks were enrolled. They came to Missouri in their glory, and they thought that the fight we'd be dismayed. But they soon had a different story when they met Kelly's Irish Brigade. When they met with the Irish Brigade, the boys, when they met with the Irish Brigade. Didn't those cowardly Lincolnites tremble when they met with the Irish Brigade? They have called us rebels and traitors, but themselves have thrown up that name of late. They were called it by the English invaders at home in the year of 98. The name to us is not a new one, though it is one that shall never degrade. Many true-hearted Irishmen in the ranks of Kelly's Irish Brigade. When they met with the Irish Brigade, my boys, when they met with the Irish Brigade. Didn't Didn't those cowardly Lincolnites tremble when they met with the Irish Brigade? Well, they dare not call us invaders, geez, but states' rights and liberty we ask. And the Missouri will ever defend her, no matter how hard may be the task. Then let true Irishmen assemble at the voice of Missouri Brigade. And the northern fanatics will tremble when again they meet Kelly's Irish Brigade. When they met with the Irish Brigade, my boys, when they met with the Irish Brigade. Didn't those cowardly Lincolnites tremble when they met with the Irish Brigade? When they met with the Irish Brigade, my boys, when they met with the Irish Brigade. Didn't those cowardly Lincolnites tremble when they met with the Irish Brigade?
And those cowardly DCites trembled when they met with the Irish Brigade. Because that's what's coming. So, again, battle music. For everybody out there, if you take the time, do a little history search, there's a lot of really cool stuff out there you can draw on. And you need to make sure that you have your micro FM station ready to go, too, for that very purpose. A lot of you got music-making technology, noise making in the car already there. Might want to take advantage of it with stuff that's going to make a difference and, again, pumps up the morale of the troops. That's part of the mission for communications, people. You guys need to be squared away with technology ready to go. Do we have a caller? Before any further, I hear a voice.
Yeah, we do.
Go ahead, caller. Jump in there, please.
This is John from Kentucky.
Hey, John. What's going on?
Well, not exactly on topic, but I think it's kind of important. Today there was brain fuzz. The Second Amendment Sanctuary City subjects. Kentucky.
Oh, okay, very good. Jump in there, please.
First of all, it's Kentucky, Pulaski County, Somerset, Kentucky. They voted this morning at 10:30 unanimously to make Pulaski County a sanctuary city.
Very good. So the county itself, the whole county.
The whole county.
Good.
And
Okay.
I know this firsthand. On firsthand knowledge. I was in the room when they voted. Firsthand knowledge. I was there. It was a unanimous vote to make Pulaski County a Second Amendment sanctuary city.
Excellent.
Over.
Again, unanimous vote?
Yes, 100% unanimous.
Excellent. That means they're serious. Okay, that's what needs to happen. What about the sheriff?
I didn't hear anything from him. Now, yesterday there was one for the city council. We went to a meeting with them, and we submitted the paperwork to get it in motion. But that was last night. This was today at 10:30.
Right. Well, I'm just curious. Usually, if they do the sanctuary vote, the sheriff is usually kind of in the wings somewhere. I was just curious if he was anywhere abouts with that.
I'm not sure. Cannot confirm or deny.
Okay, that's good. Well, again, that needs to be the person who needs to be approached, because supposedly he's going to follow the orders of the county, the county board, right?
Yes, I hope so.
Supposed to. Okay, which works out well.
Almost.
Now, was there a discussion? Go ahead. Did I hear another voice?
No, it's just me.
Okay, good.
There's another person here waiting in the wings. Go ahead.
Okay, very good. One of the other things about this, I've mentioned on the air, you do realize that if they were to take advantage of what they already have in their files there. They could be outfitting and equipping a militia at no cost. I mean, megadeth. We're talking if somebody was truly serious, if they took their screening card, guys, you've got so many bases across the state, first of all, but just to the east, across the coast, anything and everything that is considered perishable, you could acquire enough to outfit virtually hundreds, if not thousands, of men. Web gear, molly gear, tentage, field kitchens, everything top to bottom. If somebody were serious, if that's a unanimous vote, you know what you need to do, sir, is go back and talk to them. Hey, have you got a DOD, a government screening card? Well, and they should know that they do. Okay, they call it a 33. I don't care what the program is. It's a screening card. But the fact of the matter is that anything like field gear, boots, tentage, that's all that stuff is considered perishable / it's accountable that you can't just toss it away. But I mean, you can throw it away later, but you're supposed to keep in storage, have it on standby. You can issue it out, and eventually it's never going to be returned. It's not supposed to be. It's considered perishable / expendable, just like potato chips. Okay. Any of the common gear a soldier would use: socks, underpants, T-shirts, uniforms, web gear, backpack, body armor, helmets, all that is up for grabs. And out of Fort Campbell, out of, for instance, let's see, what else we got? Knox. There's not as much in Knox as there used to be, but Fort Knox / Knox. And let's see, anywhere in the Carolinas, they could send somebody with a truck. Hell, for that matter, they could screen the vehicles they would then use to move. Your county could have any of these counties, every one of these. They should be on high gear to do as much of this as they can. The way to do it is get containers from the government, storage containers. They are all there, screenable too. You get the containers, lay down some gravel, drop the son of a buggers there, go back, grab all the equipment, load it up, sort it out, have it squared away, and do pods all over the county ready to use.
I'll pass this forward.
Yeah, and that includes trucks, trailers, engineer equipment. I would recommend for most of the counties, here's how they can fully justify, nobody can piss a fit. You can get combat engineer equipment, the MOAG universal vehicles that do trenching, and they have a backhoe. There's a bunch of those that have been coming through. There's not that many of them, so whatever's left, there can't be too many, but there's some. But you can get backhoes, you can get buckets, you can get dump trucks. For the militia units, most of them, the best thing they could do is build a stinking combat engineer unit. Think about it. You can use it for anything you need to. The dam breaks, you got them for that. You got water rising, you got them for that. You got a problem with some other kind of man-made or natural disaster, you can claim that that's what your vehicles and equipment are there for. You don't have to claim, but they can't. It's the reason that they put this system in place is so that these counties and states could do this. Well, guess what? You focus on the combat engineer unit, and they're always mechanized. They're all mechanized. Everything you need, those Tinkin dump trucks would be a phenomenal, useful tool when the time comes.
Here we have Lake Cumberland and the Wolf Creek Dam, and that's all Corps of Engineer.
There we go. Okay, and that's why, again, you'd have even sandbags. You know what? You guys can get free. You probably can already do it. They may not be paying attention. If you're in that situation, you have free sandbags available to the DOD.
Yes.
Mil-spec.
I acquired a bunch when I was in Indianapolis. I did a bunch.
Yeah, the average bundle, if you have a standard military bundle, that is everything to revet and overhead cover against artillery for a two-man position. That's what one bundle of bags is supposed to do. If you get a full bundle, the way it's set up, a single bundle, some of them will be OD green. The better ones that are from the end of the Cold War are actually, each one's a different tactical color. One's black, one's brown, one's tan, one's green, one's loam green. And when you lay them out, it looks like it's a camo pattern when they stack. So just heads up, you guys should be accessing every stinking one of those you can get. And if they're all unanimous on this, well, how serious are they? You need to present them with the idea the other side's serious about coming after everybody's blood. Now, we better be serious about protecting our own. And that's where every one of these counties, especially the ones that say they're supporting militia operations now, they should already be in high gear on this. And you guys could still do this as a liaison for the other counties, even in Virginia, to say, hey, guys, are you up to speed on this? And one person can't do it all by themselves. Everybody pitching in, though, could make this happen.
Okay.
Okey-doke.
Okay, I'll back out. Let somebody else in.
Thank you. I appreciate the heads up. Well done. Again, solutions, not just complaining about the problem. Solutions, guys. We got another caller. Caller, jump in there, please. I'm patient.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Wanted to kind of talk about a little bit like your previous caller there. And by the way, that's really great news to hear from Kentucky. And we should be hearing a lot more of that from all the counties throughout the U.S. because I think you're right. I think it's just they're going to try and do it another way, just trying to institute another gun grab situation any way they can, and just keep trying to do it. We just got to keep plugging the holes each time they do it, make it firm. And the more times that they try and do it, the more education will go out to the masses. This is what they're trying to do. And by that, they will demonstrate and educate people that we need to re-educate. By their actions, they will educate everybody. But I wanted to talk about something else. And you have said many, many times, study the ways of your enemy, lest his ways become yours. And it's great that we're doing all these things. It's great that we're plugging the holes and we're blocking the enemy and we're keeping him from doing whatever it is that those sick minds are trying to do to this country any further, and that we can reverse it. If we want to really combat our enemy, we have to study our enemy. Our enemy is sick. Our enemy is depraved. Our enemy is satanic. They're into the sickest forms of things that humanity can delve into before the Lord says, reprobate. I'll have nothing to do with you. And this is what we're dealing with. These people have money. They have secluded themselves. They live within their own rules, which basically is none. It's just their money. Stop me anytime you disagree with anything. Their money definitely causes them to walk between the raindrops. And I think if we really want to be an effective adversary against them, we have to understand them and who it is that they hate. They do, in fact, hate our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. They do, in fact, want and vomit at the sound of his name. If we stand in firm understanding of who Jesus was, what he came to do, and who he is now, this is a good starting point to build in your arsenal and in your spiritual fight to combat the enemy who is in our country and in our system, government, social, schools, hospitals. They're making all the laws, they're making all the rules. And, everybody's just kind of, and I was talking to somebody today, and he said to me, and this is why this is coming up, he said, it makes me sick. And I said, if you understand the 3-letter word, if you understand this word, it doesn't make you sick at all. It just makes you just go, okay, I get that now. I used to be sick to my stomach and angry and just clenching my teeth and my fist, and but I understand it now. And I have peace and I have understanding. And that's what Scripture tells us to do. It tells us to find peace and understanding and wisdom. When we understand these things, we understand who Jesus is, and we understand all the things that we need to do, then we understand our enemy. And I just want to leave you with that, and all my brothers and sisters out there in the country. Understand who Christ is. Understand the culture. Understand the times, the circumstances, who was in power, who this person was. Someone like Herod. Herod was a half-Jew, and he controlled the temple. He appointed the Sanhedrin. And I was talking to a Christian today, and I was telling him all these things, and he just looked at me and said, I never knew these things. It's like, wow, well then you really, you're left void when you're reading the scriptures, because if you don't understand the backdrop of all that is in the scriptures, then you're missing huge pieces in understanding of the intent of the words when Christ is speaking, when Peter and Paul, when the apostles are speaking. We miss these things. We don't understand the intent. And the intent comes to us when we study the scriptures from a historical, accurate point of view. So, to my brothers and sisters out there, study the scriptures so we can know our enemy. Study the history of the scriptures. Study the backdrop, who was in power and what was going on, what was life like, who were the key players, and the scriptures will just reveal themselves to you even more. So I just leave you with all that.
And you can relate to them. Well, most important here is that you can relate to them, so that you understand your place in the greater scheme of what we're facing in this fight. You know what? Stonewall Jackson. Guys, read what you can about Stonewall Jackson and understand why it is that he was as successful as he was. He's not the only one of that breed, because again, the being focused and righteous, and there's a term, and by the way, not just Stonewall Jackson. And caller, I don't know if have you ever read Ivanhoe?
I have not.
Okay, seriously, take the time, because ignore the movies. The movies, like everything Hollywood and their corruption does, read Ivanhoe. There's a reason they took Ivanhoe out of the schools. Ivanhoe used to be kind of like one of those mandatory reads for the longest time, but it requires a mind that absorbs. There's a term that is used, which you will find in most of the older script. It is a French term, oh mon Dieu. It is puissant. Now, it sounds like, well, this is good a pussy. What it means is, basically, go look the word up, puissant. What it means is to be above the drama, to be focused as a man and as an adult, or whatever term you want to use for where do you need to be to have that mind and that spirit settled. And because of that, that's where the epiphanies come from, where the idea that you because you're able to focus, you have a realization of what's going on around you and a true clarity of mind. And in other words, being even puissant at the point of battle, being to the point where you stop, you settle yourself, you are focused, you are determined, you've chosen a path, you're going to stick to it because you're adult, you're competent, and you're spiritually centered enough that you will accomplish it beyond any standard that can be understood or established. But the Ivanhoe, it explains, it actually covers so much of what the battle is right now too, and what was the problem with England back in the day. It's interesting. The movies, the older ones come close, but remember, the same group that ran Hollywood then runs Hollywood now. And so any other version you see is so corrupted or so twisted that when you read Ivanhoe, you just look at whatever garbage is produced by Hollywood, and it's like, well, there's another thing you can throw out the window right there, and then you don't even want to watch it. You won't even if you watch and observe after you've read, then you understand why they had to make the mutated, perverted version that they did in Hollywood. So, just a heads up, guys. Spirit being we even have to watch this. I know how it is. I'll tell you what. Anybody who's ever been in certain environments, Barnacle Bill the Sailor comes out real quick and easy if you're not careful. But there's another reason for being properly disciplined. Be actually thinking in the processes of the still mind, is that we have an agenda. To accomplish what we want, we have to create the conditions.
That's right.
That's all there is to it. And that means that we need to be properly settled in mind, in spirit, and in body. And each one is attached to the other. The body, again, as we've said many times, the spirit commands the mind. The mind commands the body.
That's right.
Okay, it's that simple. That's a pecking order.
If you are settled, just like you're saying, if you have your center of who you are in Christ, and you understand the absolutes of what is good and what is just and what is sanctified, holy. You cannot be shaken from it. And as much as people can try and, when you put your foot down and you say, I will never do this, it means never. And I've had people, bless their heart, try and shake me. Say, I am firm in my resolve. And I've never felt more peace about it. And, right or wrong, I've been wrong a lot of times. But I know that when I make a decision, and my yes is my yes, and my no is my no. And, it also requires good counsel, because we all make mistakes here and there. But when we have that peace, we cannot be shaken from it. Who is Ivanhoe?
Ivanhoe, is the main character. Forgive me, normally I'd rattle off the author, but Ivanhoe is a medieval knight, Richard the Lionheart's era. The story centers actually the sub-story or the ongoing epic is around the period of time when Richard the Lionheart was taken as a hostage, and it explains the money and the people of money. You might know who those people are in Europe, but it's interesting because the interweaves that take place between the different elements that are exposed in the process of the story. And of course, Richard the Lionheart eventually is released, only because England bankrupts itself to pay for Richard the Lionheart to be released. And who is it that becomes those bankers of such a transaction? Which I've always argued when I read this, the first time I read it, it's like, the color of this is such that wouldn't it behoove the people that they went and got the loans from to be the people who betrayed Richard in the first place to make sure he was taken hostage? Just something to think about. But there's a lot more to it. I mean, it actually gets into the individual cultures, the sub interactions of the different elements of the era, both sides of the channel. But it's representative of the kind of skullduggery and the nature of things to where they are even to this day. In fact, it's an epic tale. It's the only way to describe it. It's an epic tale. We're in another epic right now.
And Mark, that's a Sir Walter Scott novel, yeah?
Sir Walter Scott? I think so, yes. Thank you. Sir Walter Scott.
Yeah. Hey, Mark, this is Carl in Virginia. What the last caller was just, he reminded me of is there's a book called Heaven is for Real, and they also made a movie about it. Anyway, this little 4-year-old kid, he goes to the hospital for emergency surgery, and he goes to heaven during that, and he meets Jesus and all that stuff. Anyway, he comes back, and he's like, has absolutely no fear of death. His dad scolds him for running out in front of a car in a parking lot and said, you could have died. And the kid goes, oh, cool. That means I get to go see Jesus again. But wouldn't we all love to have that kind of confidence? So if you're right with God, no matter what happens in this upcoming conflict, we win,
Well, we have to husband our lives. Okay, we don't cast them away. That's the only way to teach that youngling. Okay, young soldier, it doesn't mean we aren't going to visit him again. We're going to go stay, but we don't rush that.
Right. But
ain't none of us making it out of here alive, so to speak, as my dad used to say. But you know what? We'll stick around as long as we can for the entertainment part.
But yeah, no matter what, we're going to win because either we win the battle or we, go down with our boots on and get to see Jesus before anybody else. So, hey, cool.
What are you going to do? Threaten me with heaven?
That's right.
See, that's the problem they have when you take that attitude. It's like, but you know what? Here's the thing. I will tell you, as I've said time and again, guys, if you have that attitude, Doc Robinson said it best. He goes, the moment that I realized every one of us had the same problem. He was in World War II and he came in at D-Day. He said, everybody was scared they were going to get, mutilated one way or another. We're going to get killed. You're going to go. He goes, finally, you realize that if you just stood there shaking in your boots, you were going to die. He goes, once you realized you had a job to do, he goes, well, you still could die, but you know what? I'm here. And he goes, so were a whole bunch of other people for the same reason. They realized you got a job to do, get it done, whatever that, there's the task. It's before you. Thank God when you're done. And he was very much against this whole PTSD garbage. I mean, as far as he was this is a guy that, you know, again, beginning of D-Day, he went all the way through to the end of the war, okay? And my Uncle Bob was the same way. My Uncle Bob he's still alive. My Uncle Bob had 3 tanks shot off from underneath him. He's the most calmest, quietest man you could ever run into. The first 2 Shermans, the whole crew was fragged. He got out, you know, one of the other men on the first crew. Second crew, he was the only man that got, correction. 2 of them got out on that one. The third one, he told them, I'm not going back, and he was the only survivor. And each time turned the tank into an inferno. He said last time when he came out of that tank, he was flying. He was headed towards the hatch. The tank erupted underneath him and ejected him. And he says he doesn't know how high he flew. He says, but he was stunned. And when he hit the ground, he was bare naked. The clothing, everything was burned off him, flash burned off him, except for his boots. Here they are in the middle of a combat situation. His tank was burning in the middle of the road. There was a tiger that hit him with 2 rounds. And he's looking down. He couldn't hear a thing. He's looking down, and he realized he's looking at his boots because he landed feet up. He said, I don't even know how that happened. But he ended up crouching like you see in the Terminator almost, where he dropped to his knees. Because he looked left and right, and everybody was laughing at him. He said, I don't care what was going on. It was the most embarrassing day of my life. And he lived. And he lived to see another day. But you know what? He had an attitude. They all had the same attitude. He's got a job to do. He just couldn't do that job anymore. Guys, we're at the top. God bless you all. Let's join in together. God bless the Republic. Ladies and gentlemen, the Empire's on the run.
We were on the march day and night.
When we're going to go. But in the meantime, I plan on sticking around as long as I can at least to be spiteful to my enemy. And because I'm going to do honor to the liberty and freedom and life that my Lord and Savior gave to me. And my friends like you that are standing next to me that I have to help to protect. The liberty and interest will make it. I'm going to get out of the way, though. We got more live radio coming up. It's taking over here, and we'll be back at 8 o'clock. God bless you all. Bye-bye.
Gentlemen, prepare to defend yourselves.